This week on Extracts, floating space station, harsh decapitation. Bones is totally getting laid the next time he goes on vacation.
It's the Major Character Sickness episode. Welcome to Extracts, a podcast where we introduce each other to our fandoms one episode at a time. I'm your host, Erin Cline, an X-Files spooky bitch.
And I'm your other host, Stella Cheeks, a slut for Star Trek the original series. Each podcast, we pick 2 episodes that fit a cinematic theme, watch them together, and then record our feelings.
Our theme this week is Major Character Sickness.
I chose the Season 3 episode, For the World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky, i.e. the one where Bones only has 1 year to live, but hey, this entirely random asteroid with this banging hot lady had the cure for this terminal illness. What a funny old universe it is.
And for the X-Files, I chose Season 4's Leonard Betts, a.k.a. the episode where Scully finds out she has cancer in perhaps the worst fucking way a person could possibly find out that they have cancer.
Well, spoiler alert for way later in this episode, that's basically my synopsis showdown. The only worst way I can think of is if Chuck Norris tells you after doing a roundhouse kick.
He told me I have AIDS.
Walker told me I have AIDS.
This is going to be another one of those episodes.
Are you ready for the dig it in there, Mr. Spock?
Always.
I am Natira, the High Priestess of the people. Welcome to the world of Yonada.
I can't say I think much of your welcome.
Take them.
Now for a quick-ish episode summary. The Enterprise is dodging random missiles in space per usual. They succeed in saving the Enterprise from destruction, naturally, and Kirk orders the crew to track the course of the missiles back to the source. Meanwhile, Bones and Chapel are arguing in sickbay because he's being a stubborn bitch, and Chapel rightfully won't let him off the hook. What's the hook, you say? Oh, nothing, just that Bones has a terminal illness and is going to be dead within the year. But don't worry, he'll work until he literally dies. But Kirk can't worry about Bones dying for long because Spock figures out that the missiles were launched from a large asteroid which is on a collision course with the heavily populated planet Darren 5. It makes me laugh a lot that there's a planet named Darren, and I just wanted to say that right now. We should all be laughing about that. The asteroid itself appears to be hollow and habitable, so naturally Kirk and Spock decide to beam over and investigate. And wouldn't you know, Bones is coming too. He said he'd continue working, and goddammit, he's going to work, okay? On the asteroid/spaceship, the Triumvirate are attacked and subdued by a group of humanoids in colorful robes and questionable swim caps. The trio is met by the priestess Natira, who welcomes them to the world of Yonada and demands they be taken to the Oracle. Ominous! The Oracle, who's supposed to be wise and loving, does not like the boys because he shocks the hell out of them. Literally. Spock and Kirk recover quick, but Bones is not so lucky. Spock is like, Kirk, just tell me that he's dying so I can stop pretending that I didn't already figure it out. And since Kirk has no qualms about patient-doctor confidentiality, he tells Spock that Bones is dying. Spock is upset and lets Bones know, but Bones is like, ugh, feelings, no, we're not doing this right now. And luckily, he's saved from more subdued Vulcan feelings when they are interrupted by an old man lamenting that something is wrong on Yonada, for the world is hollow, and he has touched the sky, which is not a quote from anything, but it sounds like it. But the boys don't learn much from him because, oopsie, he dies. Despite them being strange men from space and an old man dying literally in front of him, Natira lets Spock and Kirk explore the ship while she takes care of McCoy. McCoy, whom she knows nothing about but wants to mate. Yep, you heard me right. Mate. And Bones is dying, so he's like, sure, whatever. Meanwhile, Kirk and Spock discover the ship is of Fabrini origin, a race that was destroyed by a supernova 10,000 years ago. A completely crazy-ass number, but whatever. They also realize that no one realizes that they are in a spaceship, so they can't know that they are about to crash into a planet. But before they can help the people, Natira kicks Kirk and Spock off the planet for messing with the Oracle. Bones stays and gets a little chip inserted into his head to become one of the people and marry Natira. He's fine with dying if Starfleet has to blast them out of the sky to save Darren 5. But then he finds the ship manual, and well, you can take the officer out of the starship, but you can't take Starfleet out of the officer. So he immediately abandons his new wife and calls his husbands. But oh no, his head hurts now because the people power and plant is trying to kill him for his disobedience. Naturally, Spock and Kirk immediately beam over, rip the device out of Bones' brain, and tells Yolanda everything. Prime directive, be damned. The 4 of them dismantle the Oracle and fix the ship. Natira stays behind to make things right with her people, and while McCoy might still be dying, he does want to explore the universe for a cure for his disease, a valiant goal for the last days of his life. Except, hey, wouldn't you know that Spock and Kirk found all of the Fabrini's medical records, and hey, they have a cure for this exact same rare disease that Bones has. Convenient. The trio return to the Enterprise where McCoy is successfully treated. No, side effects, just immediate. He's fine. Shout out to Nurse Chapel. And Kirk alludes to taking McCoy to see Natira again when Yonada arrives at its new homeworld in about a year. That never happens. Who needs a space wife when you have these two around? Am I right? Space laughter, whatever. I like this episode until I don't. Can you tell? What did you think about this episode?
Sort of the same thing. I like this episode until I didn't. There are things about it I like. I think it's very convenient and annoying that they find the 10,000-year-old medical records on a doorway.
10,000 years old. B, they are not the same species. How would they even know it's the same thing? Does it have the same name? Xenopi, whatever? Yes, they know that the Fabrini culture existed because they did, space anthropology or whatever. And I'm buying that we can all speak the same language because of the universal translator or whatever, but you're telling me that they found a cure for this disease 10,000 years ago and it just happens to work 10,000 years later for this.
And no one else has found it before.
No one else has found it.
They're very insular.
They're different species in blah, 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 cedar, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. They're different species and it just cures him immediately. Look, I can buy a lot from my silly space show, but that is some of the worst Deus Ex Machina bullshit ever. And it happens in the last 2 minutes of the episode. The whole episode is about Bones finding love and them saving this planet and what do we do with our last year on Earth, blah, 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 blah. Whoopsie, we're cured. We've learned nothing. Oh, a wife? I don't need that anymore.
No, it was very much like Kirk leaving his Native American wife behind.
But at least she died. I know that's not a positive, but she was dead. So he was all right, my wife and unborn child were murdered, so I guess I'll leave and we'll never talk about it because it's emotionally painful for me. Sure, I can buy that. This was just yeah, I basically got married to you because I thought I was going to die, but now that I'm not, I don't, we don't know each other, so I'm gonna leave. I did put a lot of time and effort into being a Starfleet officer, so, and you got this whole population to settle.
But she also seems fine with it that he's leaving. That's the other thing, is that she's now that you're not dying, I'm less interested.
Yeah, it's so funny. I don't actually dislike the fact that they part ways because it does make sense. They barely knew each other. She thought she was going to be floating in space for forever. He was I'm dying. So, and Kirk, even though I made fun of the fact that Bones was I'll literally work until I die. Don't worry. There is a line where Kirk is I called Starfleet and I asked for a new chief medical officer because I'm not going to make Bones work until he dies. I'm not a monster. And also, protocols or whatever.
Jerk off motion, whatever.
So, Bones was already not going to be on the starship, so he's well, I'd rather die in space because I hate it, but, I'm used to it now or whatever. So, it does sort of make sense. But then once he they know that he finds a cure or that he has purpose again, he's I did figuring this out. I am good at this. Yeah. He got the old Starfleet,
pep in his step.
Yeah, right. It does make sense for him to be I want to explore the universe and find a cure or start to find a cure for other people like me. That seems very Bones. He was having a momentary lapse of I feel bad because I'm dying. And a hot girl was do you want to mate? And he was sure, I don't got nothing better to do. So it does make sense. But he was come with me. And because he is a romantic in his heart, right? But she rightfully was no, I can't do that because I am the leader of these people, and I know now the truth. I don't have my chip in my brain anymore. So I need to we're going to be at the planet in a year. You just told me that. So I need to prep the people, and then I need to make sure that that's my mission. That's my So it's very much that Kirk and his exes being yeah, I love you, but And also at the same time, these two people don't actually know each other. Like it was like a marriage of convenience, and that convenience went away. But to her credit and his credit, both of them seem really like chill with it. It's like, I understand that McCoy needs to.
It's so weird that she just calls him McCoy.
Oh, well, that happens again in a different episode with another hot lady. So buckle up, which we won't get till season 4, I think. But so it makes sense that. Long story short, it makes sense, and I actually really like the character of Natira, despite her because she has like baby woman vocal tics, but isn't a baby woman at all.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like their love story because I thought it was chemistry. They have zero chemistry, and it was kind of boring in a way that was like it felt like it would be appropriate to see in like a stage show where you're like building this dramatic tension,
like high schoolers who have like no idea of like chemistry is.
Yes,
not to say that this acting is bad, they just don't.
Yeah, there's just something about it that doesn't click with the two of them, it made me not care at all about their love story.
But if you zoom out, it does kind of play into that. This is a marriage of convenience for both of them. She's a high priestess. This is a dude from outer space that she's like, well, I get to choose my mate, and none of these ding dongs here are like, I'm not into any of this. Oh, sure, this spaceman. And he's like, yeah, I'm dying. Sure, we can mate. Like, it sort of makes sense.
Yeah, I liked her other than that, though. Like, I thought that she was good. I thought that her character choices were good. I thought that she was like, sort of like the last episode that we watched with the like weird transatlantic accent. Same sort of deal here where it was like, what's happening here?
McCoy.
Yeah, it was like, okay, I am enjoying this except for the thing that I'm supposed to like, which felt very strange.
Yeah.
I don't know. I agree.
She was
also.
A pretty competent leader of her people.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that.
With the fact she was given, she was a competent leader.
Yeah, and I liked the world building of the place that they were in. I thought that was really interesting, and the idea of being on a spaceship for 10,000 years and you don't have any concept of anything else. These people have lived there for as long as literally anyone can remember. And anyone that anyone can remember, which is like bananas.
Yeah, it bothers me because I'm always like, so this computer was just like mostly fine for 10,000 years. It was just like a little off course. That seems sus to me. But then you were like, well, maybe it like the machine like mind controls them to fixing it and then like wipes their memory with their little chips. And I was like, sure, I accept.
Sure.
Sure, I accept. One of my notes says, these are weapons? No, lady, they're heaters. A piece of the action. I hate this episode. LOL. I was just like...
Which is very funny because the book that they show, the Book of People,
it looks exactly like that Bible.
Is because it is the exact
I fucking knew it.
Same
oh my God.
prop.
Piece of the action.
The thing opened and I was like, that's that Chicago book.
Well, then my notes are good. I do love that scene with Bones and Christine at the beginning where she's like, no, you cannot like just lie. You have to tell the captain, I know you. You're going to be all weird about this and martyry about this and work until you die and then nobody's going to know. You're going to tell him that you're sick. And he's like, fine, God, get out of here. Stop being a good friend. Oh, God.
Yeah, she was really good in this. I also love that she just had like a simple bob. She was like, I'm not doing the thing
It's
today.
season 3. The hair department is checked out.
She looked great though.
Yeah.
Every scene she's in, I'm like, God, I love Chapel. She's the fucking best.
She is great. I wish she was in the movies more. She has like a couple cameos here and there, but it's like a big bummer that she's not. And again, fuck J.J. Abrams because she's not in those movies at all, except for in one throwaway line where Carol is like, Kirk, did you fuck my roommate? Which is like, and then he was like, yeah, but she was a psycho. So like, fuck J.J. Abrams. Anyways.
J.J. Abrams.
Enemy number 1. But like I'm always going on about like Kirk and Uhura, besties, supremacy. Like I do also love Chapel and Bones like being good friends. Like she's technically a subordinate, but she's also like
level-headed in a way that he's not.
And also does like check him a lot. Like no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
It's the best.
She rules. I like her a lot. One of the things I wrote down about this that I liked that was kind of weird was there's so much of this episode that's quiet, like long stretches without any kind of background music, which is clearly intentional, but it was strange. At first I was like, did something go wrong? Like that time that we watched that Battlestar episode where there was like no sound, even though there was definitely supposed to be sound. Like that was like when they're walking down that hallway with everyone. I really liked that. I thought that, especially as the music started to fade back in and it was like, oh, this was an intentional choice. I really liked that.
Of their like isolation in space.
Yeah.
That, like, is smart.
Yeah. Yeah. I really liked that. I thought that was really cool. Of course, Spock can speak a fucking dead language. He's like, yes, the Fabrini people who have been dead for 10,000 years. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. Of course.
That scene where, so McCoy is like passed out because they got electrocuted by a stone. And then Kirk is like looking at him all worried. And Spock, you can tell he's like, I know something is up. Just tell me what it is. Just, I have all the facts. I just need one more thing to slot it in place. And then when he finds out that Bones is dying, I think I think Leonard Nimoy does like a really beautiful job in that scene where he like clearly is overwhelmed because like his annoying friend is dying. Mm-hmm. But he still cares. We talk all the time about like the interesting nuances between Spock and Bones' relationship. But he can't, like, show it because he's a Vulcan. And then, like, he just puts his hand, like, on Bones. Like, I am here for you. Don't know what to do with my feelings right now. I am just physically next to you, okay? And I think, but, like, I just think it was really good acting choices from Spock. And then Bones wakes up and is like, why are you touching me? And Kirk has to be like, yeah, I did tell him. And the Bones is like, oh, okay, that makes sense. It's okay, pal. It'll be fine. I just thought that was like a nice character moment for Spock.
They're good actors.
They are good actors.
It's nice. I like that they're good actors.
Again, I know we say all the time, broken record, but like Shatner specifically is known for his like overacting, but most of the time those are for a reason. He is actually really good in these like quiet, like his face when he finds out that Bones is dying is like, or his face specifically when Bones is like, I'm leaving, and Kirk's like, to be your husband, and he's like, yeah, and Shatner has like a very, outside of us being like, ha, shippy or whatever, like Shatner's like face in that moment, and you can see like the decisions and feelings that he's putting aside, and he's trying to prioritize his friend, but he's also like, he's in pain because he's losing a friend, and like, what does that mean for his ship? Because Bones is literally a miracle worker.
Right,
and
yeah.
I don't know. It's like 5 seconds, and it's like a very good silent moment. And then Kirk is like, okay, I accept. Like, you're dying. I will let you die however you want. Like, I respect your right to die how you want, even if it's blasted out of space from Starfleet.
Yeah. I thought that this was a good, like, to jump a little to what we talked about at the end. I feel like this is a good representation of their relationships within like the larger context of Star Trek too. So I feel like I enjoyed that part of it.
Right.
But it's weird to like as a whole the parts don't add up to like, I don't know that I would ever be like, you know what episode I'm in the mood for? McCoy gets cancer and gets fixed by 10,000-year-old dead people.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. It's interesting because like there was this one critic from Dauntless Media. His name is Samuel Waters. And I agree with what he said here. He said, it's a surprisingly effective episode about blind faith and rules and dogma, as well as a touching love story. But with the qualification that the story does a good job of providing character growth for McCoy. He had the episode not succumb to an easy solution to his predicament purely because these episodes needed their characters to remain essentially the same, then this could have been a profound, moving narrative. And I thinking about this episode, because we're looking at it from our 2023,
right? Yeah,
22. I lost time. 22 lens, where we're used to not these like episodic, where it's like it's a solution and we're done. A solution, what we're done. Because even the more episodic television that we have now, sometimes we'll still have a season-long arc, right? Even if it's like Supernatural or Strange New Worlds, where it's like these episodes are standalone, there's still like, you know, themes or whatever.
Right.
And this doesn't have that. Because in today's world, McCoy getting sick wouldn't have ended in one episode. It would have ended eventually, and they would have found the cure or whatever. But Bones would have looked for a cure, and it would have been the background story for a year or whatever.
Right, yeah.
Instead of just like, well, we found the cure. Whee! Like, and so I think part of the reason that this episode, because I mean it. I like this episode because I can even do the mental gymnastics to get over why their love story doesn't work for me because it, you know, all of the reasons I already just said. But I like it, I don't like it until the Deus Ex Machina. Or I like it until the Deus Ex Machina, and then I'm like, I hate it now.
Yeah.
It really takes the wind out of my sails.
Yeah, it's a real easy out, which I think that's a good point about episodic television, that it's, for the time, it makes sense. That's just how TV was made. And it's really hard to remove from our expectation that something like this would have like an actual answer or like an actual cure for. Yeah.
Womp.
Womp, womp.
But it is really interesting, the idea of the generational ship, and like that is a...
Oh, I find that shit fascinating.
And it's like it's a sci-fi standard now, right? This was like, this is not the first case, obviously, of a generational ship, but it's like one of the first ones on TV and stuff. So it is really interesting to think about. There is a band who made an EP called For the World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky. Bobby's got things to say about it.
So you wrote that in your notes, and I was like, what kind of band would do that? And then I listened to them. The band is Jennifer Ever.
Yep.
And I really like
Really?
them.
Oh, wow.
Well, they're a Swedish post-rock band.
Yeah, it's like really progressive, spacey, reverby, noisy post-rock. Like,
Interesting.
they've been on a hiatus since they released the EP that song's on, but they have like several albums that I was like listening to this morning on the way here.
Well, I'm glad to know that I feel like a lot of times when there's like bands who do like Star Trek send-ups or whatever, that they're usually at least worth a listen, and you're like, okay, all right. In my research, I found that it was originally supposed to be Scotty who was sick. And then they were like, make it bounce. Scotty gets actually a couple like character-focused episodes. We just haven't gotten to them yet. So I think maybe they were like, because this is season 3. So I think maybe they were like, well, we don't give Bones a lot of focus. He's always in the episodes, but he doesn't get a lot of his like own ones. So I think it makes sense. And from a character standpoint, I mean, Kirk and Spock and them would be upset if Scotty was sick, but it definitely different. It hits different for sure. Even if you're not like, make them kiss. I think it still is. Mm-hmm. I also found out that there's a novel called The Sorrows of the Empire, which is a Mirror Universe one. And in the Mirror Universe, McCoy dies because they never encounter the ship because they're not explorers. They're like people who are like, oh, asteroid, blow it out of space. I don't give a shit. So they never go and learn. And so
interesting.
He just dies.
Ugh. Dark.
It's the Mirror Universe. There's honestly, I do not have a lot of Apocrypha and stuff for this because this is a season 3 episode where a lot of people are like, whatever. One quote that I feel like sums up a lot of season 3 is from Star Trek novelist Dayton Ward, and he wrote, "The episode is typical of 3rd season. Long on talk, light on action, adequate yet hardly spectacular in execution." And I was like, ouch, but accurate.
Yeah, Jesus.
Ouch. This guy has a lot of opinions. They just happen to be right. Also, I thought just from a perspective of like, make him kiss. It is very funny that Kirk kept being like, you know what? You want to smash that lady? I support it. So you're dying. Do whatever you want. I'm here for it. Whatever you need, I will support you. Do you want me to watch? I will watch. He was like very into the idea of Bones fucking this woman. I think that was interesting. I have read several. I mean, I've read Hurt Comfort is like a lot of fanfic, right? I'll get to it in my little funny little bit at the end, but like there's the Star Trek foremothers love to hurt these men. But I've read a bunch of fics where like he either has that and they have to like cure him or whatever. Or he's like recovering from it, and I don't know. I think it's interesting that this one episode that is very mid and nobody like really talks about or cares about, that like one idea of Bones getting this terminal disease shows up in fanfic a lot. Also interesting. Have I made you watch Star Trek 5? I've made a lot of people watch it.
Which one is that?
The one where they fight God, so probably not.
No. Is that the one where he climbs the mountain?
Of course it's the one where he climbs the mountain.
I have not seen that. All I've ever seen is the climbing the mountain video.
Well, the thing about that is like there's this whole scene where they do like flashbacks of their pain and trauma, and in that movie you find out that Bones' dad was really, really, really sick with a different disease, and basically Bones' dad begs Bones to to murder him, not murder him, to end his life. Euthanize him. Like, murder is not the right. What is the word? Assisted suicide. Better word than murder. Euthanize him. And Bones does, even though it's against everything in his moral fiber, blah, 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 because it's his dad and he loves him or whatever. And then, like, some short amount of time, I think it might even be like a week, like a ridiculously short amount of time, they find a cure for this disease. So Bones has this like horrible, deep, fucked up trauma about like terminal diseases and illnesses, and that's part of the reason he was already on his way to become a doctor, but that's also part of the reason that he is so like fucking relentless about like finding cures and stuff, which is interesting because in this he acts very out of character, like, well, I'm dying, I guess I'll just go fuck on this planet. But by the end he gets back to it and he's like, no, I'm a fucking goddamn miracle worker, I got my hands covered in concrete, we're gonna find a fucking cure for this. Part of me thinks that the sales got deflated a little when they just found a random cure and he was like, oh, I'm glad I get to live, but like I didn't find it. I guess I'll just have to save several other planets with new medicine that I'll make up. Anyways, I'm really filling time. There's not a lot of apocrypha. We can move on.
That's fine.
You ready for a synopsis showdown?
I am, yes.
All right. Bones has a terminal illness that turns out to be not so terminal because a floating asteroid/spaceship/love boat in the sky has a bunch of super specific medical knowledge that cures him. Shakespeare could never.
Bones is diagnosed with a deadly disease and given a year to live. Thanks to an asteroid they find, he gets a wife, cures his disease, and gets a sex vacation.
Good for him.
Good for him.
You know what? Good for him. Are you ready for Mulder? It's me.
I am.
I found this head. It blinked at me.
Mulder, your arms are longer than mine. Reach into this trash compactor.
Mulder, what are we doing here?
Did I mention that Mr. Betts had no head?
Yes. So, I mean, you're not suggesting that a headless body kicked his way out of a lattice morgue freezer, are you? Are you?
All right. Not quick. This is not quick. This is like 2 fucking pages. Every part of this episode winds up being important.
Godspeed, Erin.
All right, here we go. An EMT with a quirky catchphrase has his night absolutely ruined when he's decapitated in an accident. Later, his headless body calmly gets up off the morgue table, gathers up his clothes, and leaves sans head. Mulder and Scully are, obviously, called to the scene where we find the EMT, Leonard's, head in a medical waste dumpster. Scully is like, cool, no problem. I'm an expert at autopsies now, except just kidding, this decapitated head has its eyes open and it's creeping me the fuck out. Mulder, meanwhile, is out Muldering, looking through Leonard's apartment for anything unusual, which he does find in the bathroom with a tub full of iodine. But anyways, no need to investigate that any further. Bye! As soon as Mulder leaves, the body of Leonard Betts sits up out of the iodine bath, having regrown his head. The agents then talk to Leonard's former partner, who is definitely responsible for his death, who is like really, really broken up about his death, probably because she had a crush on him, but also she definitely accidentally killed him, and tells them that he had this knack for detecting cancer in people, even when they were picked up for totally unrelated things. Anyway, I'm sure that won't come back and be important at all later in this episode. Anyway, when we finally cut to the creepy, staring former head of Leonard Betts, they discover that he is just riddled with cancer. Absolutely fucking riddled with it. Straight up pickled with it. They also have Chuck do some woo-woo police photography to see what his final image in his cornea discharge was. And it's human shoulders. Whatever. I like Chuck. I'll allow this, even though it fucking barely makes sense. Anyway, doing some actual detective work, Scully uses Leonard's fingerprints to find that he had been employed with a different hospital under another name. They find the mother connected to that name, and she's just a totally innocent old lady, and I'm sure this will not come back again later either. Anyway, she tells them that her son died 6 years ago from a car accident, and see you later, bye. While this is happening, Leonard's former partner confronts him at yet another hospital, where he has either already assumed a new identity, like basically immediately, or was simultaneously working this job just in case something like this inevitably happened. And she's like, what the fuck, Leonard? You have this quirky catchphrase. Of course I knew you were still alive. And Leonard whispers, I love you. I'm sorry, before stooping, kicking her in the neck with some potassium chloride and killing the shit out of her. Uh-oh, though, he definitely gets caught by a security guard because, you know, he murdered someone in a hospital parking lot. But those pesky handcuffs are no match for Leonard as he rips his own thumb off and scampers away. The next morning, Mulder and Scully discover a cooler in Leonard's car just chock full of tumors, and Mulder guesses that Leonard subsides, aka snacks, on the tumors, and they realize that the car is registered to Elaine, the sweet old lady who definitely didn't have any more information about her mutant son, no sir. Meanwhile, Leonard accosts a man outside a bar car, telling him, "You have something I need," before killing him and stealing his cigarette lung. Thanks, I guess, to the cigarette lung, we see Leonard in a storage unit, shedding his whole body like a snake. When the agents show up at the unit, the newly generated Leonard attempts to flee by jumping into a car that just explodes to fuck the second that it's fired on by the cops. Scully hypothesizes that Leonard faked his original death as Albert, but when they exhume his casket, his body is very much still inside and disgusting, leading Mulder to insist that Leonard can regrow his entire body, and that means he's still at large somewhere. Congratulations, Mulder, you are 100% correct, and he's with his mom, who insists he can cut a tumor out of her so he can live before he calls an ambulance for her. Because they were already watching the house, the agents intercept the ambulance that comes to take Elaine away. Scully rides with her to the hospital while Mulder stays behind to search the neighborhood for the escaping Leonard. When they arrive at the hospital, Scully realizes that Leonard has stowed away on the top of the ambulance, and I guess no one that they drove past at any point noticed him on top of this ambulance. Whatever. And he locks her inside the bay, telling her, "You have something I need," and attempting to extract her now revealed cancer, gets absolutely fucking wrecked actual dead when Scully electrodes his head and fries his brain. Scully refuses to believe that Leonard told her it was the truth, and so obviously says nothing to Mulder, and goes home to awaken later with blood coming out of her nose. The classic 90s television signal for it. This person's definitely gonna die. Anyway, the end. How did you feel about this episode?
My brain fully shorted out. I don't know how I feel about this episode, actually. I understand that's very important. I think there's some good acting moments. I hesitate to say that I liked it.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones that's like, yeah, like I can understand how this is not an episode that you can miss. It's clearly very important. And I obviously knew that she gets cancer because we've talked about in other episodes, specifically the one that comes right after this, Never Again, which is the tattoo episode that we did for our accidental kink episode.
Ooh.
Which is still wild to me that Never Again was supposed to premiere before this one because
it makes it a totally different episode.
It makes so much more sense to have it follow. I just found out I had cancer. I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to go do some reckless shit.
Yes.
Versus like, I'm just doing reckless shit because like I'm over my job or whatever.
I'm pissed at my partner.
Yeah. Very different vibe and makes more sense the way that they aired it. So I think that was really smart what they did. There's good acting in this. The like graphics for like 1994 are good. Bobby warned me before. He was like, I'm not totally sure if this is going to squick you, but there is technically two people existing in the same space. But you were like, nah, it's more like a snake. It did not squick me. I mean, it was gross, but it didn't make my brain go.
It wasn't Dreamland.
It wasn't Dreamland, that's for sure. Yeah, it didn't make my like stomach like shrink. I think that, yeah, I think it's interesting. I think the idea of that Mulder was like whipping out all the science and being like, yeah, but evolution could jump. I was like, okay, Professor X, calm down with your like monologue. But like it is kind of the like idea of like evolution just skips forward really quickly sometimes. And it's like, okay, yeah, we could exist in a world where arms grow back like they do on other animals. It's not
right.
Is it? And what did he say? He was like, "Is it unimaginable, Scully?"
and her face was like, "Yes, it is."
Yeah, bro, it is.
Fucking weirdo.
But he was right
because he's always right.
Because he's yeah. That's when have you ever been right? When have I ever been wrong? Actually, like, okay, yeah. So I think it's good and it's worth watching. But I don't think I liked it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because Leonard is a very effective monster of the week. He's very standalone and creepy in lots of ways. And if you don't know that Scully has cancer, or you're not like anticipating even if you like know as a series whole that she has it eventually, but you don't know when, like getting to this in a full rewatch is still, it feels like a shocking moment because it does feel like it comes out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, I cannot imagine watching it, being an X-Files fan, you know, knowing Scully got abducted, knowing like Mulder's been through the ringer. We're all like, but we're hunky-dory here in season 4. Things are finally back to normal. I just watched the Super Bowl and oh my God, Scully has cancer.
Yeah.
Like I can't, that is like, that must have been a wild moment on TV. I can imagine the message boards just lighting the fuck up after that. Like that is one of those moments in like fandom history that's like, oh, that would have been very, if I had a time machine that only took me to important moments in fandoms, that would be an interesting one to be a part of.
To watch people just explode about it. Yeah. Because like that's just a fact we know about her character. But to learn from scratch this very important character has cancer, and like if cancer is introduced in the 90s, that means the person's dying. Like it's not something people like get over on television. It's a way to kill a character off.
Right.
So I'm sure that felt extraordinary. Like, what the fuck?
We already thought she was gonna die. What do you mean?
Yeah. Yep. And I agree. I feel like it completely changes Never Again. And I think positively.
I agree. I really
like
think positively.
I'm glad she didn't know they were going to air in this order, because I feel like the choices that she made feel even more organic about being removed from that situation. And it's not like...
It's like she's almost in denial herself.
Yes, exactly. There's not this like looming, I have cancer and I'm making these decisions because I have cancer. It's just like, I want to check out so badly from my life that like the ultimate route doesn't even matter.
Right.
It doesn't even matter that I just found out in the worst fucking way possible that I have cancer or may have cancer. I also like am so annoyed with my partner that I can't even tell him that I think I have cancer, and I just need to get the fuck out and fuck some rando. Like that's
a sick tattoo.
Yeah, and like I just think it's very serendipitous that they wound up airing in this order. I think it's the correct one ultimately.
Agreed. I absolutely agree. I do think that moment at the end where like Mulder is giving her the like, hey, you did a good job. We did a good job. Like Mulder's like, I don't understand why we're not happy right now. Like we did it. Like, yeah, I'm sorry you were proven wrong again, but like we did it. Like we're great at our jobs. And he can like tell that something's wrong, but he also has the emotional intelligence of like a potato. So he's like, I'm trying. And she's just like, can you just take me home? And he's like, okay,
I'll just close the door. Okay. And like, even if she didn't just find out that she had cancer, which she doesn't know, she just got like abducted again. Like it happens to her frequently enough that it should be like, hey, are you okay? You just got attacked and re-attacked while you were locked inside of this medical bay with this horrifying looking man. Like, and Mulder doesn't know that. Never even crosses his mind.
Why would it?
Yeah. You survived. We caught the guy.
We did the thing.
We have a body we can point at. We never have a body.
Yeah. Oh, can you imagine being the mom of Leonard Betts and waking up and then being like, he's dead. And you're like, yeah, of course he is. Whatever. And then realizing that he's actually dead. The trauma after like letting him eat your like cancer or whatever. That woman's gonna be dead in a week. Yeah, for sure. That's like a heartbreak. Yeah, for sure. That's a heartbreak kill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like this episode because it's really important, and because I think that
there's good acting and the visuals are good. Like,
yeah, and
it's all the checkpoints are there.
Yeah, it's sort of like the last episode where it's like the pieces together don't add up to like a whole. Where I'm like, you know what, I want to watch Leonard Betts. Like,
I think this episode is a lot more competently done than For The World Is Hollow.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that, but it's not one that I like pick off as my top 20. I'm not like. Especially because,
but if you had to pick like a top 20 most important episodes, this would be in it.
Definitely.
So like that's a different. But if it would not For The World Is Hollow would not be in either of those top 20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. Yeah. I don't know. I do like this episode, but again, it's not one that I'm super in the mood. Also because you don't know what this means, but 2 episodes before this is Paper Hearts, which I would absolutely rather watch. Paper Hearts. That's going to be the last episode of this season of X-Tracks.
This season?
Yes.
Whoa.
So it's a banger. You know it's a banger.
Well, yes. We specifically chose bangers, or at least important ones for the closer.
Yeah. It's yes. It's a very good episode. And because it's right before this, I'm like, obviously, I want to watch that one rather than watch Leonard Betts or whatever.
Or
whatever. But yeah, I agree. I think the visuals are really good in this. Him sliding out like a snake. It was a combination of makeup and puppetry. That's how they did part of it. And I think part of it they edited with green screen later because it looks like it.
Right, for sure.
But like, I like that they also did this practical effect with the puppetry. I think that's cool.
I have 2 qualms about it. One, if he's sloughing off his skin like normal, all of those other dead bodies still look like they have bones and shit in them and muscles and stuff. It doesn't just look like deflated skin. And so like that's dumb and makes me mad. It's a really hardcore inconsistency, especially if they keep being like, but reptiles and whatever. So like that's annoying. I accept, whatever, fine. Also, I like the horrific part of this for me, and the part that is kind of making my stomach clench and my brain go, ugh, is the fact that like, okay, he sheds his head, but his head was still like trying to regrow something and was like opening its mouth and stuff. And Scully was like, oh, but it's just electrodes. But it wasn't for this dude. And then they like dipped it in that stuff. Like, so like that head was being
really killed it.
For sure tortured before it died. And it couldn't do anything about it. And that part and couldn't even say anything because it didn't have vocal cords. So that part is fucking horrific and terrifying. And I like hate thinking about it. It's hurting me, actually. That's horrific. I hate it.
Do you think, though, that I feel like what's consistent through each of them is like the soul essence, and once that's gone, it just turns into like a meat sack?
Yeah, but I feel like the head part is different. Like, right? Like,
yeah, but where does your soul live? Like, it could be anywhere. That's the thing. Is like, we think of it as like your mind is in your brain, but if like Leonard's soul lives in like his left lung or whatever, like then that's just a head with a bunch of electrodes in it. I get what you're saying, but I also think that this episode is very unclear about what exactly needs to be left because he gets blown up in a fucking car, and is it what we saw come out of the skin sloth that was in the car, that's the duplicate that drives it, and the skin like slithers away and becomes another person? Or did that skin inflate and then
we have no idea. There's no consistency there.
Yeah, so I feel like it's hard to know, like, if that's the case, the skin sloth that slithers away is the thing that has the soul in it, because then that like later becomes him that's attacking Scully, and the other one just like sacrifices himself. It's very unclear.
Yeah, I guess it's super unclear. It's just all. Also, like, I know I said this when we were watching, and I know that it's not, but like it is hard to like escape my comic book brain that like this man who's riddled with cancer and while regenerating actually looks like Wade Wilson.
Yeah.
And can regenerate. Like the mutant power and the like character description, and like, yeah, I know Deadpool's not a mutant, whatever, shut up. Like, it all still is giving like big Deadpool vibes. And Deadpool was like introduced in 1991 and this is 1994, so like there is like in my brain I'm like, whoever wrote this definitely read an X-Men comic.
He was originally introduced in 91. I don't know when we got a full backstory.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Because he was introduced as a villain and was just like,
I got
a Deathstroke knockoff.
Yeah. He's not the Deadpool we know and love.
Right.
But like, even if it's like a retcon in my brain, like it still looks like Deadpool and has the powers of Deadpool. He's not,
quippy.
Yeah.
I mean, he does have that weird catchphrase.
Catchphrase.
Asses to alligators or whatever.
Alligators and asses.
EMT shit. Sure, whatever.
Those are my thoughts.
All right. I mean, those are good thoughts.
Thanks.
Apocrypha about this episode. So, when Chris Carter originally informed Gillian Anderson that her character was going to be diagnosed with cancer, she was, quote, delighted as it presented her with an artistic challenge and enabled her to portray her character in new manners.
Yeah, because she got to do it over. She got to do it over more than one episode.
Right, exactly.
Like,
yeah,
this is the difference. Bones gets cured immediately. Scully gets to have this whole character arc.
Right, exactly. And that starts off with deception, and you have to like move through the acceptance of having to tell Mulder eventually too, which she like doesn't. She tells Skinner before she tells Mulder.
I get it.
Which, yeah, I agree. She's like, listen, I have a lot of tests, and he's like, do whatever you need to. Just black it out on my calendar. And Mulder's like, I haven't seen Scully in 4 days. Skinner, do you know where she is? No, Mulder.
How did you get into my office again? I changed the locks. The locksmith told me this one was unpickable.
Mulder doesn't even have tools. He just uses like a paperclip and a pen.
MacGyver's his way in. No, I just climbed through the window.
Mulder, I'm 8 floors up.
Yeah.
I know. At the end of the episode, Scully wakes up coughing at 2:08 a.m. This is also the same time that she was returned during her alien abduction, because, Chris Carter loves fucking numbers. And it was also Leonard Bett's call sign, so they, like, all kind of wrap together as a nice little bow, because Chris Carter does that all the time. There was a ton of makeup, just like the last episode that we recorded about rapid aging. There was a ton of makeup. It apparently took several hours to put Leonard Bett's makeup on. Not surprising.
Well, especially, like, the one where you see, like, it's not just his face, it's like chunks of his body and stuff. Like, that makes sense.
Yes, there's a lot going on. His eyes also had specially made contact lenses because they've got the like weird pupils that are growing back. This production for this episode also required several physically exerting stunts, which they added in special effects later to bring these like illusions to life. But the autopsy scene with the head, that is that actor. He has his head like stuck through the table.
You
and
can
he's
tell.
And he's like sitting at a super awkward angle. Yeah. And then the scene where he's in the bathtub, they required him to spend several long minutes underwater, motionless in full makeup. Why? Why did they have to do that? They don't show in the same shot at any point the two of them together, but apparently he was in the bathtub that whole time.
I hate that.
I do too, because all he does is sit up at the end, and it's like, you could have just done that. You did not need to fucking do that. Yep.
That is extra.
Yes.
That is why actors go insane.
Yes. I have to be in the moment in this iodine pool. No, you don't.
No, ma'am, you do not.
You fucking don't. Especially because it's not like there's bubbles that we're seeing. He's literally just holding his breath the whole time.
It is shocking that Mulder doesn't just like plunge his hands.
I agree. He's like, I got these white sleeves
or try
on.
and drain it. Like
nothing. It
feels really out of character.
It's extremely out of character. It's super bizarre that
chuck something in it
because he just kind of like touches it and he's like. Iodine? Okay, that's it. I don't
First of all, that much iodine, you would be like, fuck, that's iodine.
Yeah, right?
Like,
Mulder has no sense of smell anymore. He went to the medical waste bin, and he smelled the heads in there and was like, that's it. I'm out. I'm tapping out of smelling.
He'll never smell again. And he never did.
And he never did. They were nominated for an Emmy for Outstanding Makeup for a series for this episode. Laverne Basham and Lindola, who did the puppet. Which I can see why. There's a lot of like cool makeup in this. This is a highly received episode. Most people really like it, even while saying it's not like the best episode of the series. It's important and it's well executed, which is like exactly what we were saying about it, where it's like, yes, question mark. I like this episode. It's the most watched episode of the entire original 9 series because it had 29 million people watching it. But like, duh, it was after the Super Bowl. Like, how are you ever going to hit those numbers again? It's like basically impossible. There's weirdly a ton of academic writing about this episode.
Why
like
did
a
I buy that?
shitload of academic writing about it. There's a lot about the nature of Leonard as a monster. Is he an altruistic versus a selfish monster? People think he kills for survival, but then like he also kills that woman to protect himself, but is that for survival also? Like there's a lot of debate.
He doesn't
want
to get Tony Shalhoub.
Yes, he doesn't want to get Tony Shalhoub. That's super important. The motivations of Scully in not revealing to Mulder that she's learned that she has cancer, which like on one hand, it is like a power move to keep that to yourself. On the other hand, it's fucking Mulder, and why would you ever give him information? Like it's just going to destroy him. That
Literally not even on his deathbed.
Yeah.
Do they give him information.
No.
We've learned this.
He's very specific about how you dole out information because he will come back and it will ruin everybody's lives.
How could my cancer get worse? I don't want to test that theory.
Yeah, exactly. And then the maternal sacrifice versus maternal monstrosity debate with the mother and like, do I protect my child? If he killed somebody, is it for a good reason? Like, where do you fit inside of this? But I was looking through academic papers and was like, why are there so fucking many of these? Like, there's a lot of it. Part of it, I'm sure, is that it's season 2, and so there's a lot of time. Season 4, you're right. That it's season 4, and there's like a pretty decent amount of time has passed since then.
And people know this character now, too.
Right, exactly.
Right?
And again, it's like a pivotal moment in the series, so it makes sense that people like zone in on this. It was just like really surprising to be like, why is there so much of this?
I mean, also, I know it's not academia, but like as somebody who has read a bunch of X-Files fanfic totally like in random crazy orders, I'm like, I don't know what this is referencing. This stuff gets referenced a lot. Yeah. This episode and things that happen in this episode and the fallout from this, like,
yes,
this gets referenced a lot in like fanfic and stuff too, because it's that pivotal character moment. Like fanfic is mostly like about character, not plot, and so it makes sense that this big character moment shows up in like a bunch of fanfics and stuff.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. There's some scientific basis for what Leonard does. They talk about it a little bit. It's similar to the regeneration that you see in lizards and newts. And in human skin, the endometriosis, the blood cells, and liver cells are all able to regenerate. However, the process is different because of stem cells. So if you were like removing the stem cell from that process and instead replacing it with like cancerous cells, there's like, in theory, some of this stuff could happen. There's some, again, academic writing about it that says that Scully and Burks mistook the tumors for blastema, or masses of cells capable of growth and regeneration into organs or body parts. So, like, basically they're like super growth centers. And if that's actually what was inside of him, then that could like cause the regrowth, which I think is really interesting. And then for Betts to truly be composed entirely of cancer cells, he would have to lack the functioning P53, which is the tumor suppressant protein in our bodies. But that in itself is fatal also. So, like, it would have to be like a condition stacked on top of another condition, which I just think is interesting that there's sometimes the X-Files is like a science. Oh, don't know her. I don't understand. But like, I like that there's some of this that's like actually based in, okay, if there was a massive jump in evolution, this is maybe how it could look. Right. So I find that very interesting.
I love this stuff. I think I have a Science of the X-Files book, and I have a Science of Star Trek and Science of the X-Men and stuff. And like, me and Bobby have been to a bunch of panels with some of the like science editors, not the right word, consultants for like actual Star Trek shows. And like, sometimes the scientists get to set up the science and be like the writers would be like, we want to do this. How do we science that? And sometimes the scientists get brought on to retcon and be like, well, the writers are like, we did that. How would that be real? And the scientists have to be like, okay, if this condition was met and then this condition was met. And I think the retconning, not retconning, but the like retroactive like sciencing of it, like in the Science of the X-Men, it's like, okay, if these powers were real, this is how it would have to be real given the science that we know. I think that stuff is so fascinating.
I totally agree. That's it. Those are my thoughts. Want to do Synopsis Showdown?
Sure. Let's see how similar they are.
Okay. Scully learns she has cancer in the most traumatic way humanly possible.
Can you think of a worse way to find out you have cancer than from a slimy snake man about to cannibalize you? Because I cannot.
We nailed it. Both of us nailed it.
As always, now it's time for Deep Throat's mission logs.
Your hemoglobin count is back to normal, Doctor, which indicates that the flow of oxygen to each cell of your body is back up to its abundantly energetic level.
Thank you, Mr. Spock.
Okay, we will start with all the world's a stage and all the men and women are merely stuck inside a gigantic fucking spaceship.
That is correct.
Yes, correct.
This was directed by Tony Leader. Leader had previously directed episodes of The Twilight Zone, The Adventures of Jim Bowie, The Brothers Brannigan. He also does several Gilligan's Island episodes. This is written by Hendrik Volarts. He had worked with Roddenberry previously on Mr. District Attorney. He's also credited for creating the Batman villain, the Bookworm, because he wrote the episode of the live-action Batman TV show in which the Bookworm is introduced.
I love it.
He was known in the industry for bouncing around genres, so he worked on a wide array of TV. Briefly seen in this is an old man, an old villager on the ship. That is played by John Lormer, who was also the doctor on the ship in The Cage and the Menagerie 1 and 2. Oh. And when he appears in this episode on screen, they played the same music Alexander Courage wrote underneath it. Weird. In this episode and in The Cage and Menagerie, which is a really beautiful thing and kind of makes me want to cry. It also kind of makes me wonder what my musical motif would sound like. Getting into the actual science of this episode, polycythemia is a real disease.
Oh, is it? I didn't know. I just assumed it was like space nonsense.
In which the body produces too many red blood cells and is not by itself fatal. Xenopolycythemia, adding the word xeno on there, meaning it is alien,
yes,
would be a variation of that disease. So Bones is producing too many red blood cells.
Because
in space.
Of an alien cause.
Of an alien cause. I think Bones could have solved that one.
Yeah. He was just in his feels, and then he was like, I don't got a cure. And then he got distracted by a pretty face. I feel like he would have figured it out.
He's also the type of person to
murder himself?
Do anything for anyone else, especially his friends and loved ones. But when it comes to him, he's going to drink himself into a hole.
100%.
Yeah. And of course, the Oracle is voiced by Jimmy, the man of 1,000 Trek voices, Doohan.
Really?
Yes, it is.
Jesus Christ.
Moving on to some casting stuff for this. As I mentioned, that is John Lormer as the old man. We previously discussed him when talking about The Cage / The Menagerie. We'll see him again when the Archons return in Season 4. All Trek doctors are good, even the ones that were recast. That is Byron Morrow as Admiral Westervliet, whom we discussed when we talked about Amok Time for his role as Admiral Comac. Why haven't played two different admirals? Who knows?
That's so interesting. Also, Admiral Comac, because Amok Time is like a big deal, is like a name that is used a million times in a million different things. Like other series episodes, other like novels, fanfic, like whatever. It's just like Comac, yeah, that's the one from Amok Time, sure.
And other than a bunch of unnamed, uncredited background extras
Who are doing the most.
looking at Bones and Natira getting ready to bone down with the most disgusted look I've ever fucking seen. That is Catherine Woodville as Natira. This weird accent comes from the fact that she is British born, and so she is started acting in Britain as well. So that is
transatlantic in the other direction.
Exactly. Her IMDb profile lists her full lips, blue eyes, and seductive deep voice as her trademarks. Her 4 husbands agree.
Full lips, blue eyes, can't lose.
I barely got my joke out before Stella got hers. And I'm really glad that we got both of them. Her acting career began at age 16 in a traveling production of the T.S. Eliot play Murder in the Cathedral. Moved to America and became a member of the Actors Studio in New York. Her film and TV credits start in 1960, with her first major role being that of Helena Landless on Mystery of Edwin Drood. Very British. She's murdered in the first episode ever of The Avengers, and her murder is like a big plot point in the season's arc. In Hollywood, she guests on Mission Impossible, Kung Fu, The Rockford Files, Kolchak the Night Stalker, does 44 episodes of Days of Our Lives as Marie Horton, an episode of Wonder Woman, and 8 is Enough. She then retires from acting in 79 and begins her own business breeding, training, and taking care of other people's horses. We got a horse girl.
We got a horse girl.
Yeah.
Moving on to Leonard Betts, this is written by Vince Gilligan, John Scheiben, and Frank Spotnitz, and it's directed by Kim Manners, which means it's X-Files as fuck. Mm-hmm. According to Spotnitz, the script for Leonard Betts was not particularly well loved at the time, but became one of their favorite monsters of the show. This is also the first time that Joel Ransom was director of photography on the show. Ransom would go on to photograph all of the remaining episodes of Season 4 and the whole of Season 5, returning again in 2016 to shoot 6 episodes for Season 10. So also another person who's like very, very instrumental in X-Files evolving visually throughout its show so that it didn't look like it was stuck in the 90s.
Stuck in the 90s.
Yeah, you can like see that shift in this, that it starts to look less 90s.
Because it is written by Vince Gilligan, John Scheiben, and Frank Spotnitz, of course the name John Gilnitz appears again. That is all of their names squished together. Here it is the name of the man in the bar. We've previously discussed this because John Gilnitz is also the name of the actor who, according to Morris Fletcher in Dreamland, played Saddam Hussein. During this is something I learned reading this, and it was interesting. During this, Mulder makes the joke, will the real Leonard Betts please stand up?
It's an Eminem joke.
No,
it's way before Eminem.
This is way before Eminem.
Is it?
Way before Eminem. This is 1994, man.
This is a line from a game show called To Tell the Truth, in which a biographical sketch was given for a contestant who was presented along with 2 imposters. The trio was questioned by a panel of celebrities who then tried to pick the real person. The denouement came when the host, Gary Moore was the original one, said, will the real blank or blank please stand up? The first version ran from 56 to 68, and it was revived 69 to 78, and then again in the 80s, and then again in the 90s, and then again in 2000s. So I didn't know that's where that came from. I learned that reading this and doing this show.
Yeah, in my head when he made that, I was like, that can't be an Eminem. I had, because I was like, it's 1994. Like, this cannot be a thing. But now we know it is a thing.
Now we
Just
know
not
it is
the
a
thing
thing.
we thought it was the thing.
And then just a shoot off of something Erin brought up. Can you imagine watching Super Bowl 31 and having this be your first X-Files episode?
Who was the musical act at that Super Bowl?
Ooh, that's a good one.
So curious. Oh, no.
The halftime show was titled Blues Brothers Bash and featured actors Dan Aykroyd, John Goodman, and Jim Belushi as the Blues Brothers. The show highlighted blues music and also had performances by the rock band ZZ Top and singer James Brown.
You know what? Actually, I think that is better because a lot of those people are also tied into like movies and television.
That's fair,
and
at
so
least.
if you're gonna shoot into like a weird, super popular television show, I feel like the Blues Brothers actually kind of, and like the dad from Roseanne, like I feel like that.
Yeah, okay, but so that's the
better.
halftime show, and then you finish a football game, and then it's this
Scully has
is
cancer.
America's spectacle. Good evening, everyone. Then a fucking beheading.
Yeah, an ambulance that crumbles like paper immediately.
I just like to now thinking about what Super Bowl halftime shows are, and it's like Beyonce and like Rihanna and Katy Perry, and it's like this was the Blues Brothers actors Dan Aykroyd and John Goodman.
Before-
Very popular,
Very
though.
popular, but
Yeah.
like very different.
Different,
Like
yeah.
they were like, yeah, whatever, halftime show, nobody gives a shit, and now it's like
It's like a big fucking
like
deal
people
now.
tune in just for this.
Right.
That's so interesting to me.
Okay, pivoting to some casting stuff. Seen as the security guard who does try his best to apprehend
He tried.
Leonard Betts, that's Brad Lorry. And we mentioned him just recently for being our comforting fireman at the end of 3.
Oh,
So I was
the
trying to
best
get
part of that episode.
I was trying to get like a good look of his face, but it was really, really dark. But yes, that is our very nice fireman.
I never would have guessed that was the same person.
That's J. Douglas Stewart as the male EMT who Mulder and Scully stop outside of the
And
Betts
he's like,
home.
"Ah, put your gun down."
He's also a landlord in the X-Files episode Travelers and does 2 episodes of Millennium, The Well-Worn Lock, and Monsters. He was Father David on Demon X and recently was Hap in the new The Stand miniseries. That's Lara Sadiq as the female EMT. Also, she's our voice actor. She voices Chi-Chi on Dragon Ball Z. It's really fucking cool that I had that moment. So she's a Pakistani-Canadian actor, and I just, like, you listen to these people so much growing up, and you never think to, like, look them up until you're older or later. I just think it's really cool. She also did a bunch of voices in East 6, a video game I played, and was Dr. Dana on Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, which was like
It's a Daniel Tiger's neighborhood.
Yep.
And a make-believe. I was a nanny for a long time.
Yep. Also did a bunch of voices in Far Cry Primal as well. Live action wise, she was also a background actor in 14 episodes of SG-1, was Dr. Summers on Remedy, and Emily Pollard on Arrow. That is Peter Bryant as our cop, our uniformed cop. He is also in 2 episodes of Millennium. He is in 522666 and Sense and Anti-Sense. He was Bling on Angel, Mr. Toei on Continuum, and recently Principal Waldo Weatherby on Riverdale. Also, Season 5, Episode 3 of Supernatural, Free to Be You and Me. He plays Deputy Walt Framingham.
I feel like that episode should, like, be something that, like, pops up in my head because it's boring. It's just like a Angel episode with Raphael and stuff. I'm bored by it.
Whatever. That's Daniel Hurtubise as the pathologist. He also plays Barrington in Roland, which we've talked about during a season wrap-up, but not in the show. Uh-oh, we were wrong.
This is the one where Dean takes Cassiel to to get a prostitute because he's like, we're probably going to die. It's the end of the world, and you are an angel and a virgin, so we should get you laid. And it does not go well.
Shocking.
Amazing.
Yeah, okay. In my head, I was like, there's got to be some. Oh, yes, it's the one where he takes him to a whorehouse. Whore said with love.
So David Hurtubise is the pathologist. He also plays Barrington in Roland and also does a Millennium episode, Goodbye Charlie. He also played the mayor on this Power Ranger-like tokusatsu-esque wrestling-themed kid show called Los Luchadores, which I oddly remember even though it only had like 17 episodes.
Cool.
It feels very your demo.
Yeah.
It's checking the boxes, yeah. That is Sean Campbell as the local cop, the other one that runs away. He also plays a second guard in the Millennium episode in Arcadia Ego. He's got a cool guest actor career, does a bunch of like the sci-fi shows that went through Canada, but he's also in 3 episodes of Supernatural.
Bobby hates this part.
The first being Free to Be You and Me.
Great.
The second is season 10, episode 22, The Prisoner. He plays a sheriff in that. And then The last one is season 14, episode 12, Profit and Loss, where he plays another fucking cop.
Neither of those are pinging around in my brain, so we're just going to let it go.
In 2 minutes.
Oh,
Actually.
I looked up. Supernatural is the one, it's their Frankenstein episode where the Steins are like, whatever. And then they try and kill Dean and they're like, oh, we're like Frankensteins. We have this history. And Dean's like, I'm Dean Winchester. You're all going to die. And then he murders their whole lineage. They do deserve it, though. They do body snatching. They deserve to die. It was pretty good. He kills Hitler and ends the Frankenstein line. I don't know what the other one is, but we'll just have fun with the Frankenstein one.
Of course, that's Bill Dowback as Dr. Charles Burks. Chuck Burks, I love you so
What's up,
much.
Chuck?
Expanding a little bit on the conversation y'all were having earlier, you know, all of that kind of woo-woo cheese stuff that Burks is talking about does show that that severed head is somehow still connected in energy-wise to that body that's walking around.
You know what I appreciated with that, though, is that, like, when he actually dies, it's because of an electricity thing. So they actually, in unrare X-Files form, do set up the end.
Yes. That is Jennifer Clement as the bad driver, Michelle Wilkes. She's also Susan Perkins on Eureka, Dee Dee Bottoms in the zombie horror comedy movie Fido, and also plays Wendy Rice in season 8, episode 17 of Supernatural, Goodbye Stranger.
That sounds important, that title. I don't know. It just says they're hunting down an angel tablet, and then it's got Meg in it. We love blonde-haired Meg. This seems just like a regular-ass episode.
Mom of the Year, Elaine Tanner, is played by Marjorie Lovett. Most known for small roles in Tootsie, The Fan, and Clear and Present Danger, also on Knots Landing, a couple of episodes of Beyond Belief Fact or Fiction, Charmed, American Dreams, Scrubs, and How I Met Your Mother. And then that brings us to Paul McCrane as Leonard Betts. This same year, he would go on to play another member of the medical profession when he joined the cast of ER as Dr. Robert Romano. He's the one who loses an arm because he sticks it up while standing underneath a helicopter.
Why would you do that?
He also...
He's an idiot, you know?
He also plays a character who looks similarly melted after being dumped in a vat of nuclear waste before getting hit by a car in RoboCop. Also known for playing Montgomery McNeil in Fame. He was in that failed cop musical TV show, Cop Rock.
Oh, yeah.
Cop Rock.
He was Trout in Shawshank Redemption, on Champs, Graham Bauer on 24, and recently has been on the courtroom show All Rise. Born in Philadelphia, he studied acting at the HB studio in New York. His first screen role was playing a multi-fracture patient who asks Rocky to sign his head in Rocky II. He was nominated in 1977 for the Joseph Jefferson Award for Actor in a Supporting Role for his performance in the play The Landscape of the Body at the Academy Festival Theater in Chicago, Illinois.
Hey.
Was nominated for a Young Artist Award for Best Young Actor for his role in Fame as well. Seems like just an actor's actor type dude. Did you figure out where you knew him from?
24. I watched a lot of 24. It's not a show I
Just
ever
'cause it
like
was
went
on?
back and like
Yeah.
rewatched or anything, but I did watch it when it was on.
I loved
and I
24.
think some people just sit in my brain, and whenever I look it up and I can't find anything but 24 is there, I'm like, it must be 24.
Yeah.
That's it for me. Don't lose your head out there.
Terrible.
Just the worst dad jokes. They get worse every time.
Worse every time.
Well, whatever he was doing, he's taking the secret to his grave.
Yeah, for the second time.
All right, let's go over to our overall thoughts.
Okay.
How did these episodes tie to the theme?
There was a lot of character illness.
There was a major character who got sick.
There was an illness for a major character. Oh,
Yes, yes.
yes, yes.
We nailed it.
Once again, strictly adhering to the theme in season 3.
How would you say that these episodes tied together?
I mean, same deal. They're about one character revealing that they have cancer, not revealing that they have cancer,
Right.
really, but then like coming to terms with the fact, at least with Bones, because it becomes cleared, but like Scully begins the journey of like, what do I do about the fact that I have cancer?
Right. The interesting difference, which we touched about a bunch, is like how one is a show from the 60s where things need to be wrapped up in a little bow. So
Right.
it's like, okay, now it's cured. But one is in the 90s where it's like, oh, we'll use this as character development.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the big like, how television and time has changed.
Yes, exactly.
So, fan questionnaire. As a fan, how would you say this episode holds up compared to the others that you have seen?
Okay. It's fine. I feel like there's not a lot of the other cast in it, which those are the better ones that obviously have more of the cast in them. I did think that it was good building up a triumvirate, like, emotional arc with each other. I thought that stuff fit really well.
Especially because it's season 3, and it's like, at this point, people are like, yeah, they like these guys.
Right, yeah, exactly. I don't know. I guess I don't care about Bones' love story. And so that also makes it like, it feels unusual that he's having a love story and that it's supposed to go well. Like, at least with the salt vampire woman, like, it was clear.
Doomed from the start.
Yeah, it was clear it wasn't going to go anywhere because she was, like, married and they'd already said goodbye and she's a salt vampire.
Other times where, like, Bones tries to flirt, but then they're like, oh, Kirk. And he's like, well, he called dibs. Bones respects the dibs.
Yeah, exactly. And so this one feels unusual in that I don't really ever want to cheer for a Bones love story. Even though I love Bones, I'm just, like, not interested in the women that he's attracted to. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't like this. No, I'm not interested. Is it Kirk in a dress? No, I'm not into this.
I do have fan art saved on my phone of Kirk in a dress if you'd like to see it.
Shocking. I'd be surprised if you didn't have that.
Or fix where they're
you have a tattoo on your body.
Well, that's a girl Kirk. I do have fics where they're all them all / some of them, depending on the link, are in drag, and it's also great. What?
It's just Tu Wong Fu, only it's the cast of Star Trek.
Oh my god, I need it. My body. Oh man, but Kirk is like the Patrick Swayze character.
Yeah, obviously. Loves a day drag.
It's a say something hat day. Oh, hens across the board.
Oh my god. How would you say this X-Files episode holds up in comparison with others?
I think it holds up. I mean, it's very strong. It's super well written. Also, like I joked about, uncharacteristically like makes sense in a way. Yes. Even though like it's still like woo woo, this dude grew his head back in science or whatever. The like actual like I'm fine when the supernatural stuff doesn't totally get like explained, as long as the like plot or character beats make sense, which don't always happen. But this one, like, makes sense for everybody. And, like, I was joking while watching it, like, why is this dude just, like, in town still? Like, go away. But once we know that his mom knows and she helps him and stuff, like, that makes more sense. But, yeah, so I think it made, like, plot-wise sense. And then the reveal is, you know, again, I can't imagine watching it and not knowing it was coming. Right. And so, yeah, it holds up extremely well, I think.
All right.
What is the most Star Trek moment of this episode for you?
Probably Spock walking up behind Kirk like, so are you going to tell me what the fuck is going on here? Yeah. What the hell's going on? It felt very true to Spock to be like, let's not pretend like I don't know something is going on. Mm-hmm. Kirk's like, I'll spill immediately. No bones about it.
But all bones about it. He is dying.
Yes, exactly.
For me, it's when Scully they were like, in the hallway, and Mulder's like, animals regrow their limbs, and Scully was like, yeah, but not their heads, and Mulder was like, worms do grow. They do. Gotcha. Nailed it.
But Mulder, they're worms.
Yeah, but I'm still right. So.
Still right.
Finger guns. Are you shipping anybody in this episode?
Triumvirate.
Mm-hmm. Make them all kiss.
Yeah, make them all kiss. Go back to your husband bed together. Make him feel better.
You know, you have a wife, but you don't need a wife. That's what we've learned. All of them have wives. A bunch of times. Fucking Kirk has multiple wives. Spock has a wife. Bones has a wife. Couple wives. They all got wives. They don't need them.
They're out with their husbands in space. Who needs a fucking wife?
Who needs a wife when you got a starship? You know? I need that on a t-shirt. My other wife is a starship. Oh, you got it. I got me.
Goes on the merch list.
Oh, man.
On the merch list.
Okay. Ooh, I am literally crying. I'm not really shipping them. I'm still in friend zone. Sorry, it takes me a long time to cheer for them. I know that's sort of also the point.
It's like the whole deal. Yeah, exactly.
But it was sweet how he was like, I can tell something. You just need to write. Okay, I'm here if you need me.
Yeah. You should be proud. I'm really proud of you, Scully.
We're proud. Are we not proud?
And Mulder's like, or Scully's like, too late. Too little, too late.
Get out of my face. Is this episode a fuck, fine, or a flop?
Fine plus, fuck minus.
You love a fine plus, fuck minus.
Yeah, because again, like, I like the character of McCoy's wife, but I didn't like their romance at all. And that's like a really important part of this episode. So I feel like it can't really be a fuck minus because that's lacking in lots of ways. But in general, I enjoyed it, except for the...
I think you should maybe just go fine.
Okay, fine plus. It's a fine plus.
This is a fuck because it is a good episode and it is very important and it's well acted and blah, 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 blah. But I just still don't think I would be like, you know what? Leonard Betts time. Let's watch it.
Yeah.
It's definitely one to watch and a rewatch.
Yes.
Or if it's just like playing on in the background.
Or you're doing like a mini arc watch or something and you want to start with important Scully stuff. It's a good one to pull for that too. It's very rewatchable. It's just not fun. Right. Really?
Yeah, and For the World is Hollow is good if you were doing like a mini arc of like good triumvirate episodes, like focusing on that aspect. That would be a good one to pull. But yeah, no one's just sitting down and being like, I want to watch Bones get sick.
And then cured.
And then immediately cured. Magic.
Magic. Science is just magic. All right, you can find us on the internet. Follow us at NYD Productions on Twitter and interact with the show using the hashtag XTrexPod. You can find me at NYD Urgency on Instagram.
You can find me on Twitter at Stella_Cheeks.
And you can find me on Twitter at Haberdasher9K.
You can also email us at xtrexpod@gmail.com with questions or comments. You want hurt comfort? I got it. Hell, I got a link for an old fic where Bones explains hurt comfort as an actual illness that Spock and Bones have contracted. Bonus, it's also like 40 years old. I also have a hard copy of Night Visions, i.e. the one where Kirk goes blind and Spock leaves Starfleet to take care of him. Is it problematic? Oh yes, but it's also old and weird and incredible, and the horny foremothers love their hurt comfort, and I love them, and just shout out, if you love Star Trek fanfic, you should look for the old stuff because it is wild.
And if you would like a place where such links would be readily made available to you, and also where we have discussions including if Leonard Betts can regrow a whole him inside himself, including his bones, is that technically self-empreg? You could join our company Discord as well as get access to our script notes, extra podcasts, a bunch of outtakes by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/NYD Productions and pledging like at least $1 a month.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and to tell your friends. We find that this nerdy shit, it's better when it's shared.
We'll see you next episode for Children Are Evil. In the meantime,
believe boldly.
Seek truth.
Ship proudly.
X-Trex is created and written by Stella Cheeks, Erin Cline, and Bobby Hoffman, and produced by Bobby Hoffman for NYD Productions. Our show theme is Alien Spy by Ionix, and our show art was made by Jonathan Curtis.
Walker told me I had...
Polycythemia.